everyone, I'm Sarah. So for my literacy timeline, I'd like to start by talking about the person that first impacted me as a literate individual, and that is my dad. He is by far the most wonderful person I know, and he primarily raised my brother, sister, and I by himself, so he didn't always have the most time in the world to instill in us the importance of reading, being as he worked a full-time job and we grew up on a farm, so he had a lot of responsibilities on top of taking care of my siblings and I. But what he did do is instill the importance of storytelling in us. My dad, while I was growing up, would tell the most elaborate, crazy stories, often about some made-up animals that lived in the woods and different tall tales around the holidays. And at the time, as a kid, these are things that I believed. And I came to realize that these were stories that my grandparents told my dad and his siblings, and these are stories that I still tell my nephew, and my dad tells my nephew, and my brother tells him, and my sister tells him, and when my boyfriend comes back home to visit, I tell him these stories just because they impacted my childhood and my adolescence so much that there's something that I like to share with other people. So my dad might not have been big on reading, but storytelling is just as important, and it's another way to communicate. Just because these aren't written down, they're passed down through my family, and they're very important to me as a literate individual. So for my next one, I'd like to talk about the artifact that kind of describes my overall literacy identity. A little backstory. Up until about 6th grade, I absolutely despised reading. I found no joy in it. It always seemed like a task and a chore to me. I remember in 3rd grade when we would have to do book reports and read a story and have to color on a paper bag and put some things in it that told about the story. The most I would do is flip through a couple pages, be like, oh, that kind of sounds important, and I'd put some stuff in a bag, and that would be it. I hated it. It wasn't fun for me. No one made it fun. I didn't have teachers that told me that reading was supposed to be fun. But then I distinctly remember in 6th grade discovering Harry Potter, and I started reading them. At the time, only 5 were released, and I read the first 5 books in a month. It changed my life. Those novels unlocked something in me that made me realize literature can open up a whole new world for you, a place for you to escape, and you can learn something new and just get away for a while. And that really made a big impact on my life. So as you can see, I am missing one of the books currently. I have a coworker that's borrowing the 3rd one. But these books to this day are so important to me. I'm 26 and they still mean the world to me. I make a point at least once a year to reread the whole series. I'm currently on the 7th, so I'm almost done. And just a few more things that I have a whole wall of different books and different things that have to do with the universe. Some of them are books about artifacts from it. I have illustrated copies of the books. I have a copy of Quidditch Through the Ages, Tales of Beedle the Bard, and Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. So these are things that it genuinely makes me so happy. And it might sound kind of nerdy, being as I'm a little older now, but I grew up with this, and it really, even now, when I reread them, it reminds me of how much joy I got from it the first time I read the series. And that's why I make a point at least once a year to reread them, because they mean that much to me. And it also opened up my world to so many new novels, and I always wanted to keep reading after that. I always had a library book that I had checked out. I was going through books so fast, and to this day, I still have that same love for reading. And so for my next artifact, I'd like to talk about college. Through high school, I kept up that same love for reading, but then college started and life kind of gets away from you. It was a different place. I had to make new friends. I was taking classes that were a lot harder. And so I just I never stopped loving reading, but I didn't make time for reading. And as a double major, I had English was one major and then communication studies was another. I kind of started to realize or remember that I had that love for reading. So I'm very thankful for professors that I had that awoke in me the love for poetry. That was something that I didn't really have before, because in high school that I didn't really have any English courses that put a big emphasis on poetry. It was mainly about reading classic novels and a little Shakespeare here and there, but no one really focused on poetry. And so once I was in college, I was taking entire courses about it, and it made such a huge impact on me. And though I wasn't making time to read novels at the time, I was making the time to delve deeper into poetry and finding poets that I really related to and connected with. And that made a huge impact and difference in my life. I even now have different poems hanging around my apartment that really just meant a lot to me at the time. Maybe the time when I read it, I was feeling a little sad, or I was feeling extra happy, and I stumbled across a poem that said exactly what I was feeling. And that's something that I never really had a chance to experience until I took these courses. So I'm very thankful for that. And these are books that I keep all the time. I keep out on my coffee table because they're that important to me. So for my final artifact, I kind of talked about him already, but that would be this silly, crazy little guy here. This is my 6-year-old nephew, Gavin. He means the world to me. My brother and sister-in-law are about to have another little boy, so I'm really excited about that too. But Gavin is so smart. He loves to learn, and for him, my sister and I, around the holidays and for his birthday, we try not to give him toys. We make a point to buy books for him and activity books so that he can continue to learn and grow and really find a love for reading that took me way too long to find. I wish I would have found that love for reading when I was in kindergarten, first grade already, but I just didn't have that. But when I found it, it meant the world to me. So at this age, we're already trying to instill that love for reading in him and the importance of storytelling in our family and just passing on his knowledge as a literate individual and adding to it with things that I know and my sister knows and my whole family knows, and just helping to shape his identity as a literate individual. So those are my artifacts, and I hope you guys enjoyed my literacy timeline and a little look into what makes me me. Bye!